Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller, the podcast. I'm joined by Seth.
Hey, welcome, guys. Thanks for finding us on the internet.
Now, these shows originally aired on Brookings Radio, but now they're all here for your enjoyment. I hope you like it.
There you go. Sit back, enjoy the show, relax. Let us know if you want to see anything on future shows. As we said, this comes out live in the Brookings area, but enjoy this archive episode.
Beer Untapped with Perry Miller.
Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Are you new to craft beer or relatively new? Do you feel intimidated walking into a brewery, tap room, or brew pub? Well, don't. We're here to help guide you through the process. A craft beer tap room primer this week on Beer Untapped. Seth Cook with Wooden Legs Brewing says, first of all, don't expect tableside service. Head on up to the bar.
Some craft beer restaurants have tableside service. There's a lot of reason that many craft breweries and tap rooms don't. And if they don't have table service, it's usually because most of the time that a patron comes, they want to try many of the different beers, and that's usually best facilitated right at the bar with the bartender able to turn around and pour samples and have the conversation. In a really big restaurant setting, they can still do that, but very often they'll be a lot more keen to give you some guidance as you sit at the bar, and your waitress at the really big establishments won't be running back and forth between the tap lines and your table. So I would say at any craft beer bar, and especially at craft beer breweries, belly up. You know, that's it. Belly up and talk to the people behind the bar. They're right there. They've been explicitly trained to teach you about their beers. And the other thing, I guess, to add to that, don't be afraid to ask for some samples, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because many of these little craft beer bars, this is going to be the only spot in the world that you'll get some of these flavors. It may be a one-off or a seasonal or something that they've done, and you'll never see this in a keg, and you'll never see it in a bottle, and you may never see it again, and that's part of the fun. So experience that by getting up to the bar and talking to the bartenders.
In most brew pubs and tap rooms, you'll see a chalkboard, maybe an electronic flat screen listing all the beers they have on tap. It's also going to include information about the beer, including style.
So we're going to try to feed you as much information about this beer as we can in a chalkboard setting, because, again, many of these beers are unique to the brewery, and some of these styles may be the only time you've ever seen these.
And once you learn a bit about it, the style is going to tell you a lot.
Right. So the style is the shorthand. Most breweries use the Beer Judge Certification Program style sheet, and that's really nerdy. If you want to look it up, you can. But it basically what this gives is a shorthand, and it's not every beer will fit perfectly in every single style, but we do use that as just a reference. So when you look at it, you can see the difference between a Pilsner and a Stout. But that gives you at least a start. Very often, they'll put the information like ABV, and that's important because do remember that most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, craft beers are usually higher in alcohol by volume than what you would get, in a bottle at a supermarket or something.
You may also see a listing for IBUs. That's a measure of perceived bitterness. Generally, the higher the number, the more bitter it will taste.
I don't put IBUs. It is just, I want to make sure people, if you see it at a bar or restaurant, that's perfectly fine. But just to understand, it doesn't quite tell the whole story. You may have to do a little bit more discovery.
More of the craft beer tap room primer when Beer Untapped continues. Welcome back to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller and our craft beer tap room primer. Now, don't be surprised if you see beers served in different styles of glassware.
A lot of times there is different serving glasses. So Belgian-style beers are usually served in a tulip. English-style pints are served in nonic glasses. So the chalkboard and the menu that you see in front of your table may have all of these things.
But, of course, Seth Cook with Wooden Legs Brewing, he has some other things to be aware of.
Things that are common at a lot of these breweries is that it may smell like a brew day. So if you come in and it smells like wet bread, it probably is. And different times of the brew day, it changes from malt to really green hoppy aromas. Some breweries like ours get kind of warm and humid. Some breweries, they brew off premise or they brew in a different spot, so you won't see all that. There's oftentimes you may see noise and people milling around in the back, banging kegs and working. So brew pubs are fun because you get to see those types of things, but just be prepared. There's probably folks that are actually making the beer while you're here. And more often than not, if you go to a brewery, they will have at least some part of the production facility exposed.
One cool thing about craft beer bars, tap rooms, and brew pubs, the flight.
You get in there and you're not sure what you want and a sample just doesn't seem like enough. Or if you want, and I would encourage you, instead of asking for multiple samples, just go ahead and try a flight. And a flight is usually a series of small glasses, usually a few ounces, sometimes 3 or 4 ounces, of beers that you can try. Some breweries will have set flights. They'll say this is a certain thing that we're trying to set up. And then some breweries, like ours here in Brookings, will let you set your own, and you can just write a list. And it's a really kind of a cool way, cost-effective way to try 4 or 5 different beers.
Most importantly, don't be intimidated. At nearly every brewery, tap room, or brew pub, they're going to be friendly and helpful. Finally today, let's head over to Brookings Liquor Store. Drew Eklund says new beers on tap for your growler fills include one from a brewery new to South Dakota, White Elm Brewing of Lincoln, Nebraska.
This is called LNK Common, $8.96 for a 64-ounce fill. This is a California Common style. So White Elm takes on the style in a kind of a different way. It's earthier than I expected, with bready malts, slightly spicy, bitter finish. It's well carbonated and pretty crushable. The next one, new on tap from Shells. It's their English-style blonde ale, $8.96 for a 64-ounce fill. Another easy-drinking, light-body beer for those of us who'd like to forget that it's winter, if just for a while. So this one is bready with hints of fruit, pine, and light hops. Also, make sure to check out our Facebook page for an up-to-date listing of our growler station selection. So if you ever want to know what we have on at this moment, check out our Facebook page.
New packaged beers at Brookings Liquor Store include Avery's 24. That's this year's anniversary beer from them, an excellent double IPA. And don't miss the awesome Surly barrel-aged Pentagram. That's it for this week's show. Until next time, drink local and drink responsibly.
Thank you for listening to this archived edition of Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Feel free to listen to other episodes, and if there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future show, please let us know. Thanks again.